Hey, folks, welcome back. I've sort of been in storytelling mode lately, and so an interesting thing came up today, and there's a good story behind it, so I wanted to share that in case anybody was interested. Basically, we have a big piece of news coming at the studio, which is that we've ordered an analog mixing console, which is not something I've had since, I don't know, 1997, I think was the last time I had an analog mixing console. It was that was a Soundcraft Ghost. I had it in my studio in New York. But things have come full circle, and but this time we're going, quite a big step higher, which is we've ordered a console by the company API, which is a very famous company. They've been around they just celebrated their 50th anniversary. They've made a lot of classic, big mixing consoles that have been in big studios and have been, used in historic recordings. And this is a, smaller console, but it's every bit as professional as the big ones. And, we're very excited to be getting it, and the general change that's going to make to the way we produce music around here. So that's a lot of fun. I've been posting about it on Facebook, and some of my OG audio friends have been chiming in, just congratulating, saying how much they love API mixing consoles, and one of them, my friend Roger Peltzman, was basically I met this person, Roger, when I was making my audition tape for music school. I went to State University of New York at Purchase for music, and it's in Westchester, New York, and it's a really great school. The people at Juilliard laugh at us, but it's a conservatory. And there's a full classical program, jazz program, whatnot. And I was in a very unique program called Studio Composition that was actually started by students. And it had the support of an amazing faculty member named Jim McElwain. Great program. Basically, we had to do all of the same, requirements as classical composition majors, but we had to also learn about the studio. We wanted to learn about the studio, and then we also took things like pop arranging for horns and strings and so on and so forth. And the big difference was our recitals could be, we had to do a half-hour junior recital and a full-hour senior recital, could be any genre we wanted. And, Jim McElwain, the professor, the head of the department, really tried hard to inject diversity into this particular program, because the rest of the music department was less diverse. At least, well, musically it was not diverse. It was classical only. So, I mean, he brought in hip hop artists. He brought in all kinds of people, and it made it a very exciting place to be. And actually, quite a few successful people in the music industry have gone through that program. Namely, the person who was later to become my boss, Regina Spektor, went through the same program. But anyway, all of that's to the side. I was making my audition tape to get into that program, and it was not an easy program to get into. And I basically I lied to my father and told him that everybody was making, 24-track professional recordings to get into college at professional studios. And as professional studios go, I found one that was a really nice balance between not being too crazy expensive. I mean, I think, I don't remember exactly. I think we spent $600 or $700 on the whole thing, so it wasn't totally bonkers, but it was a nice studio. It was called Water Music in Hoboken, New Jersey, and it was people who know the studio. There's a lot of love for it. I'm blanking right now on it's a seminal figure in the music business who ran that studio or owned that studio, and I'm blanking on his name. But artists like Yola Tanga and Freddie Johnston, that there was a label attached to the studio, kind of, and a lot of great people worked there. So anyway, I booked the studio. My mother bought me a used Alesis HR-16 drum machine, the gray one, if anyone remembers those. And I programmed my own drums for 2 songs, and then a third song I just did solo acoustic. But I went in and was assigned to Roger Peltzman as my engineer. And I used the studio's bass, and we, for the technical people in the audience, we actually we were recording to 2-inch analog tape, 24-track tape, and we actually striped it for SMPTE time code. And Roger was I couldn't have done this. Was making my drum machine synchronized to the tape. So we were able to put all the individual drums on their own track. And thank you, Roger. That was awesome. You did that. And I played the studio's bass, and I used the studio's amps, and I did the vocal myself. And my recollection is it was it was horrible, but I was not a great songwriter, but a fair guitar player, and so the music was performed reasonably well, and it was recorded very well. Thank you again, Roger. This was the first time I had ever worked in a professional recording studio. I had been in them before. I had already worked for a jingle house. And I'd sat in the back of the room watching a lot of sessions happen, but I had never been the guy on the mixing board dialing the knobs, and didn't have a lot of knowledge about that. But I was a pretty seasoned musician by that point in time, and so I wanted to get my hands dirty, and Roger was really cool about letting me set the equalizers and everything, and basically do the mix. And so I did, and we got it done. And to make this part of the story shorter, I got into college, so it did what it was supposed to do. But now my recollection of this is probably a little off, but somehow there was some talk about me working at the studio after the production was finished, and I don't know in what capacity they meant, but my response was, I don't know how any of this works. I don't even know how to put the tape on the machine. You don't want me representing you to your clients, and this had nothing to do. I wanted to work there. I was very interested, but I just felt like I was supremely underqualified, and to say the least, totally unqualified. So they said, well, a lot of our interns start off by doing live mixing, and at Maxwell's, which was a very, very famous club in Hoboken. It was, I think fairly called the CBGBs of New Jersey, and it was pretty close by. So they sent me there and said, just tell them we sent you. And so I went over, and sure enough, I can't remember his name, but there was one guy who was the sound guy there. And at the time, there was the CMJ Festival, College Music Journal, and it was just 6-7 bands a night. It was just bonkers, like 7 days a week. So this poor guy was going out of his mind. So he actually hired me sight unseen, like no test, no nothing, and I didn't know anything. So it's a good thing there were no tests, and it was just, here you go. And I learned trial by fire on the job, and I'm sorry to every band that had to experience that with me, but I learned fast and got it going, and a career was made after that. So that's all well and good. Roger and I, turned out, I had gone to SUNY Binghamton for 2 years. So did Roger. And I had worked as a DJ on their radio station, which was not a joke. It was like a 50,000 watt station. It was competitive with whatever the local commercial rock station was. And Roger had worked there too. So we had all that in common, and we stayed in touch over the years. And when I graduated college, I opened my own studio in Chelsea, in New York. And Roger, was a client. He brought in, he produced a record for the artist Lee Feldman, who just this year I saw was performing with Byron Isaacs, Isaac, my friend in the Lumineers. So it's small world, really fun. But yeah, Roger produced this record for Lee Feldman that was for Mercury Records, and we did all the editing at my studio. So that was fun. And yeah, Roger and I had this sort of Zelig-like friendship. We kept bumping into each other. We bumped into each other working at NYPIRG, and it was like New York Public Interest Group, and all these these weird things. Roger himself was a classically trained pianist and went on to really seriously delve into that career, which is great. And I never got to record his classical piano, but anyway, so Roger was on my Facebook post, and I was talking about buying this small API console, and I happened to mention to Roger that, hey, that console at Water Music, like when we first met, it was working on an API console. It was, and then Roger says, yeah, that was the console. That console was used to mix Exile on Main Street, by the Rolling Stones. And man, if I ever knew that, I can't imagine I would have forgotten that little detail, because that really blew my mind. But it's what a fun, thing to know, and piece of history. That the very first real mixing console I ever put my hands on, ever really worked on, was used to mix Exile on Main Street. Like, it's just awesome. Like, it just, it makes me feel like, I was part of a continuation of history, even though my thing doesn't, was not significant to anyone but me. But, it's just fun. It's a fun thing to know. And I don't know where it is now, but Mike Tarsha was in on the thread on Facebook, and he actually posted a picture of the console, and sure enough, that was the one. So that's just a lot of fun. And, so we're expecting the delivery of this console pretty soon. It arrived at the dealer yesterday, and which was the November 3rd, and it's paid for, at least as far as they're concerned, and it's should be shipping out soon to come here. And the funny thing is, it was supposed to take 4 to 5 weeks, and instead it took 4 to 5 days to come here. So we don't even have the cabling yet. Cable's being made by a great company in Nashville called Trace Audio, and actually he just texted me a few minutes ago saying he's starting on that tomorrow. So next week is going to be exciting. Hopefully we'll have both console and cables next week. Anyway, I just thought it was a fun story, and wanted to share. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you were as tickled by it as I was. Take care. Bye-bye.